Cheers. All right.
Got our coffee.
Yeah, I got the coffee. We are live here. We're both trying to wake up. We're both talking about waking up in the morning and all that kind of stuff. So welcome everyone that's watching, that watches this live. There's probably not many watching it live, but people that watch this are recorded for sure. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Let's take our celebratory sip. I am, in case you don't know, which I don't know how you don't know if you clicked on this thing, Kirk M. Samuels. And my passion is co-creating a world of intimacy and unconditional connection. And one of the ways that I do that is with this webinar. And I am deeply humbled. I am excited. I am excited. I have a whole lot of adjectives to go along with this particular webinar here today, because I have my good friend, my buddy, my mentor. This is one of my guys. I look up to him. I mean, in a whole lot of ways. I tell him all the time, he's on my Mount Rushmore of men, period. I mean, I was thinking about this as I was kind of laying in bed last night, that you're one of the most interesting men alive. But let me introduce to you my friend, my brother, seriously, one of my inner circle guys, Dr. Chris Rippe. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing good. I'm still, like you said, I'm still trying to wake up, taking my sips of coffee, and just getting ready to do a little fun conversation with you here.
Man, I'm looking forward to this one, big time for sure. Man, you are, the reason I say that you're one of the most interesting men alive. I mean, you're a son, you're a husband, you're a friend, you're a father. I mean, you're a dentist, you're a boss. I mean, you're a musician. What don't you do? Is there anything you don't do?
Yeah, mornings.
You're a comedian.
Yeah.
Man, I mean, is there anything you don't do, man? Oh, man, you do a lot of stuff, man. You do a lot of stuff on a lot of different levels, man. There's not many people that I have a higher level of respect for than you. And you know that. I tell you that all the time. This is not anything new between me and you. And so, man, I appreciate you on this morning, because we're going to talk about a topic that is near and dear. We brushed on this a little bit the other day as we kind of prep for this, near and dear to my heart, and that is the topic of fatherhood. And so thank you for coming on. And so to get into that, so if I'm watching this, I'm thinking, well, what makes him qualified to be on here talking about fatherhood? And so let's get into who you are, man. Let's introduce folks to who you are. So where are you from?
Well, I grew up in Texas, in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Kind of lived down there till I got through high school, college, and then dental school, and then moved up to Colorado. So kind of raised with, those good old Texas values of, just being friendly, valuing people, and being nice to people. It's a very friendly culture. So that's kind of the culture I grew up in.
Wow. So Dallas. So it's funny that we've never had actually an issue with me being a Redskin fan and you in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. We've never actually had that discussion yet. But yeah, that's all right. We'll still keep the webinar going. We'll still keep on track. Now, so you are Chris Rippe, the what? What number?
I am number 4.
You're number 4, so there's 3 before you.
Yep, there's 3 before me.
You're 4th generation Chris Rippe, and we'll get to 5 in a little bit. But that dude. So that means that you come from a lineage of Chris Rippes, and that's significant. I've met your dad, great guy. I met both your parents. I mean, great folks. I mean, they're just nice, humble folks, man. I just really get along with them. And so, do you have any siblings?
Yes, I've got two sisters. I have, and they're both older. So I've got one that's living in the Junction area, Grand Junction, Colorado, and the other one that lives down in Texas.
Wow. I didn't know that. I didn't know you had two sisters, man. And so obviously I'm building a picture of kind of who you are, because I'm gonna get to some points on all that. And so I mean, who lives in or has lived in your home over the last few years?
Oh, who's lived in my home?
Yeah,
So
family.
family. So I'm married. Married. My wife's name is Joanne. She's from Australia. Great gal, lots of energy. Oh my goodness, she's always going. Very friendly. Loves to have people over. Then I've got three sons. My eldest is Danny Christian the fifth, and yeah, five. And then we have our middle son is Blake, and then our youngest son is Peyton.
Wow. You've made three boys, and I mean, tell you all are just a great family, great folks. Now, what do you do for a living?
So I'm a dentist, do general dentistry and all kind of facets, and just take care of people, families, young, old, middle age. So yeah.
And I think I'm pretty sure I might have an appointment coming up soon. Yes, you are indeed my dentist on top of my friend and everything else. And so I say all that to say, I mean, not only are you a person with a family past and family of origin, that kind of stuff, but you've also created a family, and you're part of maintaining a family, along with maintaining a business, maintaining a career, maintaining a marriage, maintaining all the things you have to maintain as a person, as a human being, and all of the different roles that you are. But I know you, and I know that one of the most important roles that you've had is in your family. Probably the most important role in your heart is in that home right there, and that's one of the reasons why I admire you. And specifically, having raised three boys, and in the process of raising three boys into men, and they're all great. I give them a hard time, but they're all great guys. And it'd be different if they were knuckleheads, and it'd be different if they didn't care about anything. But they're all great guys. I mean, they're sons, as well as and us as men. And this is why kind of this topic means a lot to me, is because for one, I have a pretty significant father wound. And I think a lot of men do. I say that I think most men have one of four. I think most men either have a father that was completely absent from the home, completely absent within the home, abusive, or set such a high bar that that he could never be successful at being a son. And so I think most guys have a father wound. Now, you happen to be a father. You still have a father in your life, and now you have the next generation of sons coming along. And so from my perspective, I find that I am a father, have been a husband, but I don't really know what those things are. And so I find my life kind of conflicted, especially trying to manage everything. And so and you're in the middle of all that. So I respect all that, and that's the reason why I reached out to you to kind of to carry forth in this topic. And so in terms of managing all the things that you have to manage, and doing all the roles that you have to do as a man, and again, man, husband, father, friend, all those kinds of things, what would you say is probably the toughest of all of those roles to manage?
Ooh, I think managing time as a dad, and man, what we've really found is, especially as the kids have grown up, it's really difficult to manage time. We tried, as the kids were young, I tried to do sports with them myself, and kind of keep them out of going to sports in a lot of different places, so we weren't going crazy all over the place. But now we told them, once they had an active sponsored sports at their school or something that was easy to manage, then they could go ahead and do that. So as they become teenagers and Now the eldest is up in his 20s. It's like them doing sports has kind of really consumed a lot of time, and just outside activities. But yeah, managing time has been really difficult, and then trying to maintain a good relationship, with my kids, with having the time for my spouse, for my wife, and business and everything. That's probably for me really one of the tougher things to manage.
So do you think that you say managing time and fitting all of that in, do you think it's also a challenge to be present in all of those things, be present and when I say present, I'm just talking not even just physically there, but being present amidst all of that stuff that's going on. Is that part of that challenge in terms of time?
Oh yes, I'll find myself at like a basketball game with the boys, and this thing will go off, and and you're trying to manage things that are going on. Right now we're currently building a building, and I'm getting calls from that, and trying to manage all the pieces and parts of running a business, managing employees, and managing, kind of trying to relax at home and enjoy your family time is very difficult, and it's getting worse in this world that we live in.
What do you mean by that?
It just seems like, I think with electronics, you can stay connected so much that it's hard to kind of put your foot down and say, okay, I'm going to disconnect for a little bit here, and I'm going to take some time to just sit and watch my kids play basketball, or I'm going to sit down, on the couch and have a little discussion with my wife and get to know her better, find out what's happened with her today. It's becoming more difficult with, I think, electronics and staying so connected.
Yeah. Do you think, from a perspective and again, since we kind of are framing around fatherhood, do you think that from the perspective of raising your sons, is that a challenge in terms of being, I guess you say, as an example for them, or as a template for them to model their lives by?
You mean the time factor in there?
Yeah, just being present and just being there, and because I think it's almost I don't even know if it's so much of a economic thing, or even a demographic thing, or racial thing, or anything, but I think it's a suburban thing now that we have a lot of fathers that are physically in the home but absent in every way, emotionally, spiritually, mentally, all those kinds of things. And so the whole idea of being present in a home from a father perspective, I mean, is that something that you think is significant to raising boys?
Oh yes, I think your kids, even with three sons, they're all very different, but all three of them, even if they tell you they don't really want to talk about their day, they really do kind of want to talk about it. I think in the last about 6 months, we've instituted a thing at dinner time. We try to always have dinner together if possible. And at dinner time, we've tried to institute this time where we just have each person around the table say what happened to them today. We were doing that. We had our eldest son was in India for a while, and he came in kind of midstream on this, and he's like, "Why are we doing this? This is, baloney." And so we kind of discontinued that for a little bit. And then we went on vacation about a month ago, and it was like a camping vacation. So we had a lot of time to sit around and just talk and all this. And the two younger kids said, he said, when you came back from India, you kind of, poo-pooed this thing about, us talking about our days. And they said, we really like that. And we'd kind of like to have that back. Even if you really don't want to, you can just sit and listen. And can you put up with it so we can do that?
Yeah.
So it's interesting, just being there and knowing, I think them just knowing that you're listening to them and that you're taking that time seems to be very important.
Yeah.
Even when they act like it isn't.
So, well, in that perspective, I mean, what kinds of things do you think it's important for them to know and experience in terms of, and I guess what we're getting to is specifically in this webinar is targeting, is targeting men or targeting males. And so in speaking to, a group of guys that may have some kind of questions about fathering, specifically raising the next generation of men and that kind of stuff, are there any things that you think are key to either making sure we instill in our fatherhood or in our sons, or anything that hindsight, you've been doing this for a couple decades, that hindsight, are important for us as men to kind of to instill or to make sure that we try to include as best as possible in our fathering?
Yeah, for us, one thing that as I look back, because my kids now are like 17 and up, 17 to 21. And, so they're, two of them are going off to college here in a little bit, and then one's almost, going to college. And so we look back at, kind of what seems to have really been some good things, that we did with the kids. And I think one of the best things we've done is we've always tried to have at least one meal a day together. Usually we have two. So a lot of times we'll have breakfast and dinner. Breakfast, a lot of times everybody's kind of half asleep, so we don't talk all that much, but we're together. And then dinner is kind of our talking time. And from the age, from when the kids were little, we would always bring up topics, some embarrassing, talking about sex, talking about different things that can happen to you, what funny happened to you today, what's the highlight of your day, what was really bad, and so we would talk about those things and discuss them and kind of figure out, and we would take examples from like what was happening with some of our friends' kids, and then we'd look at that and go like, how could you do something different? And what do you think the consequences of them doing that are? And, so we would just discuss a lot of issues like that. And so for me, I would say just being open with your kids, discussing the things that happen on an everyday, manner, and discussing things that can get you into trouble, discussing things that can help you do better. Just being really open. What we've found when we've done that is it seems like it opens up to more topics, that the boys will bring up, and then we can talk about those, and then maybe they'll say, oh, this happened to me. It'll bring something up that happened to them during the day, and then we can talk that over. And what we've also found is it seems like our sons, when something like adversity happens, they're a little more willing to come and talk to us about it, because we've talked about some of those really embarrassing things like sex or all the different things that can happen in life.
Mm-hmm. And so laying that foundation, it sounds like to me, if I were to summarize what you're saying, it sounds like on one hand there's the whole notion of being present and being physically there, but also being engaged and kind of being in the moment, but not only just being there, and that's part of being present. You have to physically, or at least you have to be there to be present. But then the other part of being present is connecting and engaging. And I'm all about connecting. And that's, I'm extremely passionate about that. And so just me kind of picking up on your whole notion of connecting when you have those moments and those opportunities, first of all, making and creating those opportunities, but then connecting in conversation and connecting in topics and leading in topics in terms of bringing up stuff and making it, if you will, safe for them to bring up other things as things come up in their life. And so it sounds like being present is key. And again, I think this is something that we have lacking in, for sure in suburban America. When I grew up in DC, and I grew up in a generation where, most of the men, and part of it was the demographic that I grew up in as well, but men were just physically absent. A lot of them were in jail, incarcerated. And so you have a generation of fatherlessness, and now you have a generation of men that weren't raised by a father or with a father around like you, and that don't know any of this kind of stuff. And we don't know because we never seen it. And we do, we're maybe doing the best that we can do, but it still quite often feels like it's coming from a place of emptiness because we don't know. And so what I hear you saying is, again, being present has been key for you in terms of not only being there, but also being present in their lives in terms of being a presence in their life.
Yeah, I think that's very true. Being present there and prioritizing some kind of time, every day if you can. I know there's a lot of guys who have jobs where they travel, so they're not, physically present, but maybe you could even do something like this, FaceTime, and spend a little time, on the computer with your kids, doing a webinar with your family, and
Yeah.
and then some FaceTime,
Yeah, that's man, that's pretty key. And I keep forgetting to point out that at least while we're live here, somebody can type in a question in the Q&A panel. Looks like there's not anything in the Q&A, but this is a fascinating discussion, like I said, because this is something that I not only do I struggle with, and I think quite often wounds are generational. And I think wounds can be passed down. And I know that I'm a wounded man. I'm a man, and I believe that the way I frame it, I'm a man, but really inside I'm a wounded boy. And so when a lot of people see the person, they see a man, they see a 45-year-old man, but they don't understand that this 45-year-old man is trying to reconcile being a wounded 8-year-old little boy. And he doesn't know. And my kids, they see a guy and they just, they expect me to have all my poop in a group. But at the same time, it's like, man, I'm flying blind here and I really don't know. And so let me ask you this, and this is, we don't have really time, and nor is this the place, but this is just a man-to-man question, a little bit of transparency. In all of that you said, do you ever feel, and this is quite simply just a yes or no question. Do you ever feel like you're a failure? Do you ever feel like it's not enough? Do you ever feel like I struggle with it. Again, I feel like I'm a fake. I feel like I'm just coming up short. Do you ever have days where you feel like that?
Oh yeah. I don't know. Sometimes I feel like there's long periods, where you feel like you're a failure as a dad. You can't communicate with your kids or whatever, but yes, definitely. Yeah.
So we do have one question in the Q&A panel here, and it says, Chris, do you have a personal mission statement you live by?
Yes, right now I would say my personal mission statement is to raise godly young men who are going to maintain their relationship with God throughout eternity. Right now, that's my focus.
Wow, man, that's pretty significant, because when you do raise that next generation of men, I think you're raising another generation of men beyond that. And that's key and important, man. And I think the reason I asked the question I just asked was because, again, us as guys, we do sometimes have stuff that we maybe think or feel or experience that we don't necessarily talk about. And I think a lot of times that's either am I enough or am I too much, or am I doing good enough, or am I don't know, just am I guess. Maybe that's why God calls himself I am, because our biggest question is, am I? What am I? So yeah, that's that I would say maybe that's the challenge in fatherhood. So of all the things that you do on, from professional to personal to family, you're a skier, you're a world traveler, all this other kind of stuff. But I think it's important that, that in me knowing you and feeling safe to kind of ask you that question, but whether or not you feel like some days you don't have it all together, or feel like some days where you don't necessarily, feel like you're the great guy that Kirk thinks you are.
Well, I tell you, it's really, I remember being so overwhelmed when I found out, that Joanne was pregnant. I was excited, but yet I was so overwhelmed because I'm like, how am I going to do this? I don't have any kind of experience in this. God doesn't put out a manual on, how to be a good dad or how to be a good parent. It's all basically kind of learning as you go and asking friends, reading books. And I am super blessed in that, that my wife definitely took the parenting role very seriously and just read a ton. So she would read things and she would come to me and say, how does this sound to you? I'd like to kind of try this, as far as, a discipline thing or just, a way to raise the kids. And so we would just bounce stuff like that off of each other. And we tried some things that like, wow, they worked. And then we tried a lot of things that didn't, so you just throw them out and you move on. It's a lot of trial and error. But there's a lot of times where I have felt as a dad very inadequate.
So let me take the moment to say, wow, thank you for allowing me to say me too. Because I mean, that is, that's again, something that I struggle with, and just, it can't be any more recent for me, just in terms of like, man, I mean, just the feeling of trying to do the best that I can, but feeling like the best that I can is not enough. And I don't even know how to be, kind of next level kind of stuff. And how do I manage the wound that I have and try at least to filter and not have that be passed on as much as possible, especially me you can see over my shoulder, the 3 girls and the boy. And, one thing you haven't experienced is raising daughters. So bless you. But but at the same time, I think, let me just kind of get straight to, and just in a, quick summary here. Do you think that it takes a man in a young man's life to help make that man, a better man in the future? Does that question make sense?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, Joanne and I say that all the time. It's like, it is so important to have a father role or some kind of a man role, and if you're a single mom out there listening, then, and you need to just find a man to mentor your son if you have a son. And if you're a single guy raising a daughter, you need a woman in that daughter's life, so I think all of us need those role models. Even myself, I need a mentor. I need somebody to speak to who I really trust, who can give me advice, or just, I can bounce life problems off of. So definitely yes to that question.
Wow. Hey, so Doc, how can, and for people that don't know, I do actually call you Doc, even though you're my friend, my buddy, but you're also part of my health team. How can people get a hold of you if they want to get a hold of you?
So you can get online and look up at drrippe.com. That's drrippe.com. Or you can call the office, use the phone, 303-779-9876.
That's all. I can't recommend you any more than you're my guy. I mean, you're my doctor, man. We're gonna get this. When you talked about building, we're gonna get this new building built. Was it right out of Arapahoe in Peoria? Is that Centennial?
Yeah, it's Centennial. Yep.
Nice. We're gonna get that thing built right next. They got the natural grocers done, man. We're gonna put you right in between that. Nona's is coming, man. You got billboards all the way down Arapahoe Road, man. You're a G, man. I appreciate you. You know that. I mean, I tell you all the time, you're on my Mount Rushmore, man. I respect you tremendously, man. So let me just drop a quick. Let me just drop a quick line of inspiration for any guys out there. If you're doing it, man, you do the best that you can do, man, and get around some other guys. Men need other men as well to help make us better men. And so get around another guy and get, masculinity is kind of, we're due for a masculinity renaissance today. And I think that's only going to happen when men start to come together. I am absolutely out here, and sometimes I feel like I'm the biggest, the biggest secret around. If there's anybody that I can help, and I'm passionate about helping guys get free from anything and everything, particularly the devil I know best, which is internet pornography. So please introduce me as well. I'll introduce anybody I know to whomever I can at kirkmsamuels.com. But and yeah, with that, we will get out of here right on time. And I will once again thank my friend, my buddy, Dr. Chris Rippe. Man, I appreciate you tremendously. I love you to death, man. There's nothing you can do about it. And we will see you around, man. Thanks, Doc.
Thank you, Kirk. I
All
appreciate
right, everybody.
Have a wonderful day.
Go out there and get connected. We'll see you. Love you, man.
Love you too.